I never should have gone to the bottom. The first seconds are always the same. The metal sigh when the hatch seals, the sudden solitude that tastes like copper and old batteries. You learn to measure time by little mechanical rituals, the clank of the ballast, the hum of the pump, the thunk of instruments coupling. Down there, the air is recycled until it smells like the machine that keeps you alive. It settles behind your teeth and goes metallic when you swallow. My hands remembered those motions better than my head did. I told myself it was routine. We were only mapping a ridge. The ocean presses in ways you don't imagine until it becomes a conscious weight. It is a slow, patient thing that seems to study bone. Lights flatten into cones and shadows forget they are supposed to be bound by shape. The porthole becomes a black pupil. Our little vessel felt less like a craft and more like a throat being swallowed. I could feel that pressure across my chest, like the sea was tightening a belt around me. Every creak of the hull sounded like someone clearing their throat. We found the anomaly at 300 meters down, an interruption in the sonar like a finger dragged across fog. At first it looked like geology, outcroppings, ridges, mineral glints, and then the shape shifted, the way a dream shifts when you try to focus on it. Something moved that shouldn't move in rock, a slow, deliberate smile of muscle and fold. The camera caught it for a heartbeat. Rows and rows of teeth, a curve that mirrored the grin of a thing that was pleased to see us. I remember the way my stomach dropped, an animal reflex I couldn't quiet. Instruments began to misbehave. The altimeter jittered as if trying to choose a number. The external mic picked up a low-frequency vibration like a distant choir tuning. At first we joked, nerves, echo, bio noise. Then, someone on comms laughed, sharp and brittle, and the laugh came back through the speakers delayed and wrong, reddened by static. It sounded like my own laugh bent and returned to me with malice. More disturbing were the names. Through the thin skin of the hull, voices threaded the air, soft, close, insistently familiar. I heard my own name gutter through the water, as if someone were tracing it with a cold finger along the glass. It wasn't shouted, it wasn't electronically synthesized. It was the cadence of memory, the exact lilt from a phone call years ago, a whisper I had never expected to hear in this darkness. The others heard them too. Silence swelled, heavy and full, and for the first time, I felt that we had been noticed. After that first naming, the ship stopped feeling like a ship and started feeling like a listening thing. The lights stopped being steady. They breathed with us, a shallow inhale and a long exhale that made every instrument red like a pulse. The internal metal smelled of hot salt and old blood. Impossible, but real enough that I wiped my lips and tasted iron. The water outside did not move like water anymore. It moved like a lung, slow and patient, and when it touched the hull, it left a ringing in the bones. The voice work began to change. At first it was small, snatches, the cadence of a voicemail, the way my sister used to say my childhood nickname. Then it learned context. It would call a name and immediately follow with a memory, intimate and precise, the exact syllables my father used, the way a summer cough punctuated Mom's laugh. The creature didn't just copy voices, it reached into memory and plucked details like fruit. When it spoke those details aloud, the room sagged, as if the memory itself had weight. Eyes went wet in the dim light, not always from fear. Some of the guys smiled as if relieved, others clapped a hand over their mouths. That was the first real betrayal, how easily it could comfort. Jonah went quiet for hours, and then, when he looked up, he walked to the aft hatch like a man answering an old lover's call. We shouted after him. He didn't run. He didn't hesitate. One push, and the outer panel sighed open, and the dark kissed his face. You could see, in the little light before the hatch swallowed him, that his smile matched the things, a slow, terrible mimicry. Then, the water took him like a soft blanket. The hatch clanged shut, as if nothing had happened. There was no body, only a smear of something that smelled like the inside of teeth. After Jonah, panic metastasized into superstition. We tried logic, noise canceling, white noise, recording and replaying our own voices. The creature adapted. If we played our own voices, it answered in tandem, layering our calls until the sound became a pattern it could step into. Electronics failed outright. Screens dissolved into static images of faces we thought we'd lost, smiles carved in shadow. The altimeter began to tick down as if we were being swallowed, even when the ship's ballast said we were stable. Gravity shifted in small, nauseating waves. My legs would go light as if the floor wanted to let me float out and meet the dark. Worst were the absences. People didn't just go missing, they were unmade from memory in the hours that followed. I would look at an empty bunk and feel a pressure, like a thumb pressing a wet cloth to the past, and then a blank where a person used to be. Photos we'd taped to the console would blur until the faces were smooth. I tried to call up Jonah's laugh in my head and came up with static instead, like trying to remember a word half heard on a radio. Terror settled then into a new thing, the knowledge that forgetting was an action done to you. And in the hollow between breaths, I heard a voice I could not place. Soft, patient, whispering, not a name, but a command. Remember me. We tried to climb out. At first, it was mechanical. Override the ballast, force the pumps, burn fuel to shove ourselves up through the water like an animal crawling back towards sunlight. The ship groaned as if insulted. The external cameras turned to portraits of faces we loved, mouths pulled into that slow, patient grin. And for a second, the ship's controls seemed to hesitate, as though weighing whether to obey me or to listen to the thing that lived outside. Every command I punched into the console came back with a copy of my voice, but softer, folded as if through water and paper. Go on, go on. It sounded like encouragement and like a trap at once. We jury-rigged the array to jam frequencies, to flood the hull with noise until the external mics returned only static. For a while it worked. The breathing lights steadied, the hull stopped singing. Jonah's bunk still lay empty, and the smear on the hatch had crusted into a pattern like dental enamel. We felt like survivors in a ruined cathedral. But peace in that ocean lasts only as long as there is a tension to hold the seam closed. When my vigilance wavered, the creature moved with mathematical gentleness. The lid of the world opened in the most human of ways, through longing. In the dim, I found a photograph taped under a loose panel. My sister at 17, hair caught by wind, her smile exact and calloused by sun. I had forgotten the angle of her jaw. The creature whispered it back to me as I brushed the photo with a finger. Memory unspooled like thread. I thought if I could name myself correctly, if I could anchor my own story, perhaps the thing could not take me. But naming is a kind of feeding in that place. Each recalled syllable offered the creature scaffolding to build its mimicry. It used my sister's laugh to soften me, my father's reprimand to make me flinch, and in those flinches it widened the seam. By then, the ship's map showed us at 2,000 meters, but the altimeter, when it decided to speak, said something else. Down there, the bottom felt less like ground and more like a waiting throat. We were already inside it. My hands shook so much I could not hold the manual pump. Tom tried to crawl through the maintenance hatch to reach the exterior panel and hammer it shut from outside. His boot disappeared into a ripple of darkness, as if the water itself had unstitched. He screamed once, a human, ragged sound, and the scream was stitched back into the speakers as a lullaby the creature hummed at the bunk where I lay awake. I remember the choice like a taste. To survive. If that word still meant anything, I could either keep fighting for a surface that might not exist or surrender a piece of myself in exchange for a single clean escape. I chose memory. I recorded myself reading names, small details, a litany in the hope that by giving the creature what it wanted, I might bargain for the rest. The recorder filled with our voices layered like vellum. For a moment the hull relaxed, a hand, enormous as fate, seemed to unclench. When the ascent finally began, it was not triumphant. The pressure changed in a way that felt like a bruise deepening. The lights dimmed as if someone had stepped away from a lamp. My recorder's playback, when I listened later, if later exists, wasn't my voice reading the names. It was the thing, reading them back to me in perfect, loving cadence. And after each name, it added one more, a syllable that was mine but not mine. The sound of something promising my face will be kept exactly as I remember it. If I made it to the surface, I can't be certain. Sometimes I awake with the taste of salt and teeth at the back of my tongue, with a name on my lips I do not recognize. Sometimes when I look in a mirror, I see for a second the curvature of a smile that isn't mine. And even now, in the quiet hours, the memory of the hull wants me to listen. Never go to the bottom.
Subscribe to Horror Story Bar.